This will be a spoiler-free review. Hey, it's Vincent here, and Ghost of Tsushima has been a game that people have been waiting for years at this point. Not only has it been 6 years since Sucker Punch's last game, but this is also essentially the swan song of the PS4 exclusives. When it was first revealed back at PGW 2017, hype for this game was high. Even I remember seeing it and thinking, wow, this game looks amazing. I was also already a Sucker Punch Studio fan, with me having played the Sly trilogy while I was a kid, and while I haven't played a ton of it, I also really enjoyed what I had played of Infamous. So I knew that with almost certainty that this was probably going to be a pretty good quality game, and not only that, but it has a huge focus around Japan and its culture, and I love Japan. It is by far my #1 destination that I have to visit before I die. Basically what I'm saying is that this game had a lot of promise for me, but also then it had a lot to deliver. And do I think that it did that? Honestly, yes. It isn't without flaws, of course, but I did really enjoy this one. The story centers around a man named Jean, a samurai who is seemingly killed in an invasion by the Mongols, but is found and healed by a woman named Yuna. He begins to gather up a small army to help defeat the leader Khan and his Mongol army to make sure that no one will ever try to take over Tsushima again. Now, the little history nerd inside me can't help but mention that the Mongols really did attempt to take over the real world Tsushima, but honestly, that's where the real history stops. All the characters, story beats, and basically everything else is fictional, but I do still find it really cool that they had even a hint of real-world basis for the story. The gameplay in Ghost is really well done. When you first begin, you only have one stance to go against all these different enemies, but as the game progresses, you will get 3 extra. Each one of these stances will be good against different types of enemies. For example, the one you begin with, being the stone stance, is good against sword wielders. The water stance is good against shield users, etc. In case you forget what's good against what in the heat of battle, the game will sometimes remind you and give you a chance to switch to the stance to better take down the enemy. As you progress along with these new stances, you'll also be getting new weapons such as the bow, kunais, smoke bombs, and much more. These can all be used to your advantage to help defeat the enemy. Personally, I found myself using the bow and sticky bombs a lot, as they seem to be the most effective against enemies, while the smoke bomb I really just never used once during my 32-hour-ish playtime. Speaking of, please developers, put playtime in your games. I love knowing how long it takes me to beat a game, and I know many others do as well. And I hated having to keep track of my own times because of how inaccurate it can be. Finally, one extra way of battling you have is the standoff. This is how you fight bosses and some common enemies. With the common enemies, you press up on the D-pad when you're prompted to, and you'll go into this mini semi-cinematic where you and the enemy face each other down. You have to hit the triangle at the right moment or else the enemy will hurt you, and these get tougher as the game goes on because the enemy tries to trick you, so you have to be extra careful, and this leads to some very fun and very tense gameplay. Now with the bosses, the standoffs work as 1v1 fights where you and a samurai are in a circle together. You have to be able to quickly react to every attack and take advantage of their openings when you can, and these are pretty tricky at times and really force you to get good at the parrying technique. This is an open world game, and the developers have taken near full advantage of that fact and have crammed a ton of stuff to do in this game. From having random mini enemy camps for you to take out, collecting wooden plants, finding fox shrines, bamboo to cut, and so much more. All of these lead you to being able to upgrade different things such as your weapons, health, stances, resolve, and more. Speaking of resolve, it's something you gain early on in the game and you can use to recover health when you have a full ball of it. The way you fill it up is by killing enemies and wild animals. Now, different actions can lead to different levels of resolve recovery. For example, if you stealth kill an enemy, you'll gain more resolve than if you battle as just one-on-one. You can also get more resolve balls by cutting bamboo in these little button minigames that are usually found in different villages. There are also different charms that you can get by completing different missions. Some will give you extra stealth, some will give you more defense, some will grant you extra attack, etc. You only start off with 3 slots, but as you find more fox shrines, you'll gain the ability to hold more and more charms. This game is also gorgeous. Like, wow, I thought I was impressed by The Last of Us 2 or Final Fantasy XV's graphics, but this is just on another level. The presentation is also something to be lauded as well. It drenches itself in Japanese culture of old, and I loved every bit of it. Now, stealth is a huge part of this game. Well, for me it was at least. I loved jumping off of high structures and taking enemies down. You can also upgrade moves and equipment with technique points that you earn by beating the main story and side quests. You can also earn them by liberating different pockets of areas from the Mongols, and I definitely put all my points straight towards stealth as I played through the game. As for complaints I had with the game, one would definitely be the lack of a targeting system. Final Fantasy XV, another open world game, had one. It wasn't perfect, but playing this and not having any targeting system at all made me really miss it. Another would be the lack of being able to climb wherever you wanted. In Breath of the Wild, again, another open world game, you can climb literally anywhere at any time, and this game feels very limiting in that regard, that there were several times I wanted to get to a higher vantage point, but I just couldn't because there was no proper areas for me to be able to climb on. Finally, while the main story isn't bad, and honestly does have some pretty good story beats here and there, it just wasn't really that special to me. Now, I did just very recently play through The Last of Us 2, so maybe I'm just being spoiled by amazing stories in video games, which led to this one feeling just a little bit lacking. I actually really enjoyed the side stories much more and really getting to know these characters. It really made me care about these individuals, and I really wanted to help them with every single one of their problems that they had going on in their lives. Despite the complaints I have with this game, I really did have a great time with this one and would love to see some sort of DLC side stories in the future. There is also a lot to do post-game, with some missions opening up only after you beat the main game, so there is definitely a lot to do after it's all over. My rating for this game is an 8 out of 10. A great swan song for the PS4 era, and I can definitely see myself picking up this game again sometime in the future. Now, what did you think of the game? Was it worthy of being the final big exclusive of the console? Let us know in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button, and thank you so much for watching. See you later.